Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're not just, reading through source material. We're trying to enter the mind of a philosopher.
Exactly. We're taking a deep dive into a really powerful recent lecture series.
That's the one on Das Mysterium als komplexer Prozess.
The mystery is a complex process.
And the central concept, the one that really just stops you in your logical tracks is this. Thinking is a mystery to thinking.
It's such a powerful premise.
It really is. It forces you to ask, if the mechanism of thought can't fully grasp its own origin, what kind of status does that origin even have?
Right. Is it just a problem we haven't solved yet, or is it something fundamentally different?
And that's our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To understand that distinction.
It is. The sources aren't trying to give us a new neurological explanation for consciousness. They're performing philosophy. We're here to explore the boundaries of our own tools language, logic, by defining the difference between a true mystery and just, a simple unknown.
So for you, the listener, this is really an exercise in conceptual modesty. We're going to explore why certain things resist being categorized.
And why trying to simplify them, to make them neat and tidy, actually destroys their value. It just reduces them to something trivial.
Okay, so where do we start?
We have to start at the absolute foundation of Western rationalism, with a principle of classical logic known as the principle of the excluded third.
Or tertium non datur.
Exactly.
Let's ground that right away. Tertium non datur means no third is given. It's basically the foundational light switch of reality, right?
It is. A proposition has to be either A or not A.
True or false, present or absent. The chair I'm sitting in is either here or it's not here.
Precisely. It's binary. And it governs almost every system we use to analyze the world.
Oh.
But here's the massive intellectual leap the lecture makes.
Okay.
It argues that the mystery of the origin of thought profoundly does not obey this principle.
It just rejects it.
It structurally rejects the whole either framework.
But hold on. That feels like saying something is both there and not there at the same time. Isn't that just a logical failure? How can the philosopher claim it escapes that rule without it just being nonsense?
That is the core tension. The mystery is presented as being neither present nor absent in that classical sense. And the lecture is very careful here.
How so?
It's not a fuzzy state. It's not a little bit existent or partially present in some gray area. It means the very mechanism of negation, the simple absence of something, just doesn't apply.
So it exists outside the measurable field of existence and non-existence that our logic assumes.
That's it. So if you were to say the mystery doesn't exist, you've already made the mistake.
The mistake of granting it a classical, measurable form of non-existence.
A form it fundamentally rejects. You've forced it into the binary box. And when you do that, you perform the conceptual reduction.
You strip it of its complexity.
You do. You grant it what they call a completely classical existence.
This sounds like the difference between searching for something you've lost and realizing you're looking in the wrong conceptual dimension entirely.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Which brings us to that crucial contrast the source makes.
The mystery versus the unknown.
Exactly. The source defines the unknown as something that exists, but we just haven't discovered it yet. Think of an undiscovered planet or a cure for a disease.
So it's a solvable problem. It's a physical object waiting for measurement.
Right. And that unknown object naturally obeys the principle of the excluded third. The planet is either orbiting that star or it's not.
Okay, so the unknown is a gap in our knowledge.
Yes.
Whereas the mystery is a structural gap in our thinking.
Exactly. And the danger, the one the source highlights, is that if you apply the principle of the excluded third to the mystery of thought's origin,
you reduce it. You automatically turn it into a mere unknown.
You've reframed a profound philosophical question into, well, a technological problem.
I see that reduction everywhere in modern discussions about consciousness. We always hear that the origin of thought will just be unlocked once we have enough computing power or brain mapping tech.
We treat the mystery of consciousness as an unknown waiting to be measured.
Yeah.
And according to the lecture, the cost of that translation is the destruction of its philosophical potential. Once it's a solvable problem, you lose all the semantic richness. You betray the initial premise.
The premise that thinking might, at its core, be opaque to itself. That makes perfect sense. We try to force these huge, profound concepts into structures we can handle, and we lose the awe in the process.
We lose the genuine intellectual challenge.
Okay, but if two-value logic, this non-existence binary, is insufficient, what if we just add more values?
The logical next step.
Philosophers have played with this. Why not 3 truth values? Or 4? Maybe the mystery is a maybe or a neither nor value we can define.
That is the next line of defense, and the lecture tackles it head-on. If the problem is excluding a third option, why not just create 3 or 4 options? Maybe undefined is its own category.
So we try to quantify the paradox away. Just add another column to the spreadsheet.
And the source has a really sharp critique of this. It argues that adding more values is completely useless.
Why?
Because the underlying logical failure is still there. If you create a logic with 4 truth values, there's still always an excluded 5th that the mystery will slip into.
Use 10, and there's an excluded 11th.
Exactly. It's an infinite regress of categorization.
You're just delaying the moment you have to admit the whole paradigm has failed.
Precisely. The core insight here is that the problem isn't the number of truth values, but the foundational paradigm of countability itself.
Accountability.
The source argues numbers and value logics play no role because the mystery doesn't involve countable existences that may or may not exist at the moment. It's not a thing you can tally or locate.
So trying to measure the mystery with value logic is... It's like trying to measure the color blue with a stopwatch.
You have the wrong instrument for the job. The mystery is a structural limit of thinking. You can't locate a boundary by trying to cross it with the very tool that boundary defines.
And that profound acknowledgement of our own conceptual limits, that leads us straight into the philosophy of language, doesn't it?
It does.
Specifically, how we choose to speak about these things in a world that is obsessed with certainty.
Right. And the source frames this whole linguistic critique with a reference to Wittgenstein.
The meaning of a word is its use in the language.
That's the one. So the argument shifts from pure logic to, well, rhetoric. How do we use the word mystery today?
And the source makes a really fascinating cultural observation here. In our modern, highly rational, often materialistic era, metaphysical terms like mysterium sound, vulnerable.
Angreifbar, as the German text says, attackable.
They sound soft, they sound weak when you put them next to, data science or neuroscience.
I think that's because the cultural dominance of STEM language has given us this deep discomfort with anything unquantifiable.
To call something a mystery today is often seen as, what, a surrender of intellectual territory?
Yeah, or just giving up. So the lecture identifies a cultural trend, a linguistic substitution to make the unassailable sound palatable.
And the substitution is this. Instead of saying the origin of thought is a mystery, it's far more common now to say that the thought arises from a complex process.
A complex process. It sounds so rigorous.
It sounds like something you can manage, something you can map out or, put into a grant proposal.
It adopts the language of scientific neutrality and technical challenge. It's the ultimate conceptual camouflage.
That's a great way to put it. If you call it a mystery, people argue with you philosophically. If you call it a complex process, they ask about your timeline and budget.
And that shift, according to the analysis, is the entire point. The term complex process sounds much more unassailable to our contemporary ears. It lets you avoid all that messy, binary-defying philosophical confusion.
So we use language not to clarify, but to escape.
We trade philosophical depth for semantic security.
We avoid having to admit that something might actually be beyond our current capacity to categorize it.
And this points directly to the ideological use of language. By reframing the problem as a process, we gained conceptual control, or at least the illusion of it, over something that fundamentally resists it.
That's a powerful critique of modern intellectual habits. I mean, you see it in corporate language and politics.
Yeah.
Big problems are instantly relabeled processes or challenges to make them sound solvable. Now, to bring this back to something more concrete, let's look at an example that mirrors this resistance to logic.
The famous liar's paradox.
The perfect parallel.
It really is. This statement, this sentence is false, is a structural blockage. Just like the mystery of thought's origin, it refuses simple binary classification.
Right. If you say it's true, its content forces it to be false. If you say it's false,
Its content makes its claim true. It's trapped.
it resists the demand of the excluded third. It has to be either true or false, but it's structurally incapable of being either one.
And the source draws a direct line here. It notes that when we analyze the ancient Cretan who first posed a version of the paradox, we often strip him and his statement of its complexity
How?
by insisting that the principle of the excluded third must apply even when the statement itself proves that the application is, well, destructive.
Which is the exact same reductionist move we make toward the mystery.
It is.
We force the paradox into a binary frame when the paradox's whole purpose is to show the limitations of that frame.
And this raises a really important question about the historical purpose of these things. The source suggests that maybe these paradoxes were used as standard tests in the philosophy classes of the ancient Greeks.
So not meant to be solved quickly?
Not at all. They were designed to highlight the limits of logical certainty, to challenge the fundamental assumptions of the students.
They were tests of conceptual humility. They were teaching the value of the unresolved.
Precisely. True philosophical engagement, the source suggests, often means admitting that some things are structurally complex and can't be flattened into one neat answer. We have to learn to navigate the edge of the map, not just try to draw new, false territory onto it.
So if we connect all this back to the bigger picture,
This entire analysis is a wonderful example of performative philosophy. It's not about giving us a final answer on consciousness. It's about emphasizing the thought process itself.
making the reflection visible to us.
Yes, it's an elegant appeal for conceptual modesty in the face of things that just can't be translated into measurable, logically coherent units.
I really appreciate that emphasis on the value of the unresolved. It's a reminder that there's profound philosophical and human value in the paradoxical, in the unspeakable elements of thought that don't fit neatly on a spreadsheet. This deep dive really shows that when we hit a real structural limit, our first instinct shouldn't be to just grab the nearest logical hammer.
The source concludes that in a world always seeking easy, quantifiable answers, some phenomena, like the mystery of thought, possess their deepest value precisely in their incomprehensibility, their Unbegreiflichkeit.
Their worth is tied to the fact that they defy an easy explanation.
It is.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, the next time you encounter one of these profound questions about existence?
I think we should consider what intellectual ground we sacrifice when we try to translate everything that challenges us into the smooth, frictionless language of a complex process.
Are we really gaining clarity?
Or are we just escaping the hard, necessary work of philosophy by making the mystery sound less mysterious? It's something to mull over the next time you hear a truly existential problem described in simple technological terms. The value just might be in the not knowing.